Cory, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. For as my dad would say, man, my age and my lifestyle.
Nice. So you're off to a good start with this year, right?
Yeah, man, it's been pretty great so far. Especially this tour has been a lot of fun. Coming up on. Well, actually, now we're more than halfway through now, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a good lineup as well. This, like, I think for the fans, it's a bit of a treat.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you got Aaron Pritchett. He's a Canadian country icon in my opinion, and legend, of course, in the country music industry, and hell of an entertainer. So you got that. Then you have the '90s country. French guy, Matt Lang, bringing
Yeah,
back
yeah,
that '90s sound, and it's just a really fun show. Great dudes.
yeah. Are you actually like playing together on stage? Like, do you join in with each other on stage on this tour?
Yeah, from right from the start. It's literally 2 hours of just us on and off stage and singing together, and it's a party.
Yeah, nice. Well, you like a party, right?
Yeah, I don't mind, especially on a Tuesday night or Wednesday morning.
Yeah. So we say it's a good start to the year. We have this single, a different kind of year.
Yeah.
Um, How have you been surprised by the reaction? It seems to have gone down like amazingly well, this song.
So far, yes. I mean, especially live, and that's one of the biggest things is playing a new song live. I've been playing it live now for a couple of years, but now that it's officially released, it's always a fun thing to see the fans or the crowd singing the song back to you, or like when you start before you start singing, just the musical part of it, people know what it is. So that's always a special moment for an artist and a songwriter when you hear and see that. But ultimately, always hoping for just a little bit more, a little bit more love at country radio, and that people can find the song easily and stream it and share it with their friends and families and loved ones, and play it at their big events and parties.
I noticed we get a lot of love like around the world and like Australia and places like that. Do you, what are the challenges like from being a Canadian country artist that you find?
Honestly, I feel like sometimes the biggest challenge is right here in my home country, especially at country radio. And other than that, like I mean, like country radio in Australia is seems to be doing really well too, which is a lot of fun, and you get a lot of tags and streams from all these different countries that it's just so very cool. But I think just definitely the challenge that I've always faced in general, and I understand in some ways, um, why some things could be a struggle sometimes is just being outside the box, being a little different. Um, I don't really have that. Well, I don't have that pop sound that you kind of hear the generic pop country style.
That's why I like you.
So that's yeah. Well, that's why it's a bit of a challenge for me, and it's tough to like kind of be the black sheep, and feeling really good and loving what you do, and obviously there's fans that love it too. The numbers don't lie, but um, it's always hard with the gatekeepers, that can kind of control what people hear and how they hear it. So that's always been a struggle for me, but I'm 12 years later, still swinging and trying to change that.
Well, country music seems to have more gatekeepers than most genres, I think.
Yeah, I think so. It's a pretty tight niche, and especially now more than ever, I feel you gotta look, act, and sound a certain way, and I just think that kind of takes the whole purpose out of being an artist. Um, not being able to do what you do and do your art and tell your story. I think that's the most important part of being an artist is doing that, and I think a lot more artists have to stick to their guns and tell their story.
Well, it's working for you. And you
I
mentioned
think so.
being the black sheep, and you seem to have embraced being the black sheep a little bit. Like, there's not many country artists that get like Mick Mars from Motley Crue on a track and somebody from a metal band on a track. You know, this is not the way to get into like mainstream Nashville country radio.
It's unique. It's fun. And some days, it's tough. I don't, you know, you kind of don't want to just be the outlaw per se, and I think like, like Waylon Jennings once said, you have everybody has the opportunity to to try their things their own way at least once, and that's really what I'm trying to do, and some days I feel like I have no choice but just to embrace it and kind of, no pun intended, but keep doing what I do, as my dad always says.
And you've got this, you've even got the t-shirt to go with the outlaw ethos.
To be fair, this is my stage shirt from last night, and I woke up in it. So I just figured, hey man, you know what? This works.
Okay, that's a good sign for a Tuesday night, waking up in the shirt that you were on stage on last night. So
Yeah, it's the Liquor It Up tour, and as you can see, we're just in the back of the bus, off to the next city, next venue.
So this song, you've been playing it for a while, as you mentioned. Why did you wait until now to release it?
Labels,
Okay.
labels. Yeah, I mean the song has been recorded for 3 years now, and I really wanted it out kind of during the pandemic when things started kind of somewhat coming back together. I thought that would have been the most perfect time, but it was out of my control. And once we decided to pull trigger and set a date, it's just get excited about it and act as if it's a brand new song to me. But it's, as you know, it's a brand new song for the listeners who, if the only chance they've had to hear this is if they came to my live show in the last 2 years.
Right.
But it's out now, and I can't be more. I couldn't be more excited about that.
And I assume you got new music planned, like an album planned for some time this year. Is this song representative
Yep.
of what we can expect?
Well, I'm always, like a left-hander and a fighter. I'm always trying to throw a surprise, and I do have a project coming out later this year, 18 to 20 song album, which is everything from Haggard, Aaron Church, Ozzy Osbourne, even right into some Pantera. And that's all music that I grew up on and love. And I definitely don't think there's any kind of project out there quite like it. Um, and I'm just beyond excited to get this album out.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear it just from the names you've just mentioned. So, talking about the music you grew up on, what's your first memory of music? Can you remember?
My first memory of music is probably so my mom's the baby of 8 children, and I'm I'm the it's funny, somebody asked me that last night at the bar, like, oh, you must be the baby sibling, just the way you just capture attention on stage and stuff. Well, actually, yeah, I am. Actually, I'm the baby of this whole family. So my mom was the baby of 8, and I'm the last of all my cousins and all that stuff born. But I'm also born on the same day as my parent, my grandfather, her dad.
Yeah.
They called us the evil twins. Blame it on the double. And so we're both born October 11th, 65 years apart. And my first memory of music is, October 11th is usually Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving, around that time. So as a kid, we would always drive north, about 2.5 hours north from where I grew up in North Bay, and go to my parents' house and have our turkey dinner, turkey weekend. But my aunts and uncles live there as well too, so we would always, be around the table, playing Merle, Whalen, and George Jones, and all this great country music. And that's a memory I'll hold for the rest of my life, is just seeing my aunts and uncles, playing music and picking music. And it's crazy to think that now, when we have those gatherings for the ones that are still with us, it's I get handed the guitar now, as opposed to my
Nice.
dad or my aunt and uncle. And it's always a special moment and a very special treat to be able to sing and play with my family, and get to play those old songs again.
I know your dad was a drummer, right, as well?
Yeah, my dad was a drummer, and he basically taught me everything I know on the kit. And then I, just listened to more and more Rush and Deep Purple, and figured a lot of things out, and started learning things he couldn't teach me anymore. But yeah, my dad was a drummer. Toured with his older brother Wolf Milestone, who's actually good friends with Aaron Pritchett, and they met each other years ago at the British Columbia Country Music Awards, which is it's kind of unique how my Uncle Wolf met him before I even knew him, and now I'm on my second cross Canada tour with Aaron Pritchett in the
Wow.
last 8 years, and consider him like family to me. He's just a really special human being, and he's always been so great to me. So it's life's crazy that way, the full circle.
So you mentioned a few like of the heavier bands. You've obviously you've worked with the guy from Five Finger Death Punch. You just
Yep.
mentioned bands like Pantera. Was there a phase where you kind of rebelled against what your parents were listening to and started getting into metal and the heavier stuff?
You know what? It's obviously my mom could appreciate it, but obviously, Pantera or Dream Theater or stuff like that wasn't her first choice, or Arch Enemy. But with my dad, I actually remember we owned a pizza shop when I was a kid, and one of his drivers was like a huge metalhead and had this crazy drum kit and would listen to this band called Arch Enemy. And I'll never forget my dad bringing home this CD. Stigmata was the name of the album, and it was Arch Enemy. And that's my first recollection of like heavy metal that I had. And then as the years go on, like, and me and my dad would be like, "Hey, listen to this band, listen to this band. Hey, you ever hear this Pantera band or Lamb of God?" And my dad loved it, obviously for the musicality, but we ended up going to a couple Gigant tours together, and so it was didn't really have to rebel because it was
Yes, I yeah.
I'd be rocking out with dad in the van or at home, or even now to this day, I'll go visit. I try to see my parents every day because I only live about 30 minutes away, and I'll be talking to mom upstairs about whatever, and then you're like, "Hey Cory, come check this out," and it'd be like some band or some classic. Like he grew up on Deep Purple too, so that was Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, Rainbow. Of course Dio. It didn't, it doesn't get much more metal than that in a sense, especially in the '70s and stuff. So, um, never really had to rebel against the parents when it came to music.
What other artists do you know of that are kind of mixing the styles that you do, like the country and the rock, and even like there's influences of metal in your music? Is anyone else doing that? I can't think of many.
No, I don't think there's anyone doing it the way I'm doing it. I know there's guys like Hardy and Jelly Roll, um, that are kind of in the Nashville scene. Of course, part of that, like I said, the clique that are kind of the that let's say the founders of that whole genre. But I still don't think they're doing it quite like me. And Nashville seems to forget that there's a Canadian kid that had a song called "Outlaws and Outsiders" that charted at number 10, making me the first to ever do it in Canadian country history, um, to have a U.S. Top 10 rock single as a country artist. A couple years later, you know, guys like Hardy and Jelly Roll started doing that too. So it's really cool. It's obviously going to open some doors, I hope, for me as well in the country music world. But um, and there's just such a wide variety of music that I've listened to, and that I really do admire. And but there's off the top of my head, those are the kind of guys that come to mind. There's also a song called "Heavy is the Head That Wears the Crown," and that was Zach Brown band and Chris Cornell,
Yeah.
which was really cool to see, especially a band like Zach Brown that's just incredibly talented, matching up with arguably one of the greatest rock singers songwriters of all time. I thought, and I remember hearing that 5 years ago, whatever, several years ago, and thought, damn, that's pretty cool.
In recent years, there seems to have been a little bit of a trend for bands to play albums in their entirety, like do a show where they do the whole album from front to back. Have you ever done anything like that?
I've never done that. Not front to back. Um, I did see Rush play Moving Pictures front to back though with my dad,
Wow.
and that was pretty amazing. On the I think that was the not sure if that was the R I think that was the R40 tour, and but I've never done an album front to back per se. Excuse me. Um, because I always kind of mix in my covers and stuff, and maybe one day though. Maybe one day I can see it happening. You know, if I get to that place where I feel I'm capable and able, and you know, the crowd wants to hear my album
Yeah.
live front to back. Uh, then I'll definitely take that in consideration and do that.
It's kind of a weird experience because you're not used to being at shows knowing exactly what's coming. You know what I mean? There's kind of no surprises, but at the same time, it feels like a unique experience. If you could choose one album to see the band play live in entirety, is the one that springs to mind?
Well, like Cher says, if I could turn back time, I would do anything to go see Rush with my dad again, and but this time, bring my brother. I'd love to see their 2112 or Moving Pictures front to back again, just because it's an album I grew up on, and you know, it's nostalgic, complete nostalgia for me, because I can still, you know, hear some, you know, like Red Barchetta and those songs, La Villa Strangiato. Uh, I can still hear them, you know, my dad's minivan driving to a hockey tournament or something like that. So I think for me, that would be the best thing to do, is to go back in time and get to see Rush play any one of their albums front to back with my dad and my brother, because my brother never got to see them.
Yeah, because Alex and Geddy have been kind of showing up regularly recently, and
Yeah,
they've been talking about maybe doing something, but obviously, you know, who would play drums is the big question if they did something.
you know, I know there's a lot of great drummers out there, but there's only one professor, and I don't know. You know, I'm sure there's a lot. Like there's this kid on YouTube, I forget his name, but he does a great job. But I just don't think it'd be well. I wouldn't. It wouldn't be the same without
No,
Neil. Neil was in my opinion the goat, the greatest of all time, and really just irreplaceable.
I think I think if anybody got mentioned, I think Danny Carey from Tool would probably get the job. Maybe you never know.
I
I
mean,
think
Danny Carey's great, and you know, obviously, I know he'd admire Neil Peart as well. Um, but there's no one that hit as hard and with such precision and technicality than Neil. Another one of those drummers for me would be Ian Pace from Deep Purple. Um, you know, who's hard, hits hard, very technical and very unique in his style of playing. But ultimately, they're both very different as well, right? But yeah, I don't. There's Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater, who's obviously a huge Rush fan and is very capable. But yeah, maybe Danny Carey or you know, Mike Portnoy would probably be the two guys that I could think of, without looking at status or something. Like, you know, people are talking about like Dave Grohl, you know, and although he's great, I think he's great at what you know what he does and what he's done. But to sit in for someone like Neil, that's a whole different league.
yeah. So I wanted to ask you: is there an album that you absolutely love that most people have never heard of?
An album that I absolutely love that most people never heard of. There's an album called, it was like my high school kind of, I want to say that I was just, you know, my graduation, my grad year, and it's crazy to think that he became my producer and great friend, and Kevin Churko. But I think the album Black Rain from Ozzy Osbourne um, is one that I know it was a, you know, obviously was a great album. It's Ozzy Osbourne, and of course it's Kevin Churko. But I don't think that's probably one of those albums that I don't think everyone has heard per se,
Mm.
you know, or would reference Ozzy with. Like obviously you think Ozzy, it's like Crazy Train or, you know, Mama I'm Coming Home or something like that. But I think that album, you know, that's really what ended up shaping what I do, is because I remember listening to that album with my dad on my way to Nashville. He was driving me to the Toronto airport, and we listened to that album front to back twice over, I think, on that trip. And this was like in 2013 or something like that. And I remember just thinking, man, it'd be so cool to have that kind of production rock production on a country record. And 6 years, I believe, 6 years after that, Kevin Churko's at my show while I'm opening up for Toby Keith in his hometown. And I got, after my show, walked into the dressing room, and there he is with the shot of Jack Daniels waiting for me. We took our shot, as I recall it anyways, and shook hands. And the first song that we wrote and recorded was, in fact, Outlaws and Outsiders, followed by Blame It on the Double. And so many great songs after that we did together. And it's kind of, again, full circle thing. But Black Rain for me would be that album that I think everyone's got to hear at least once.
Have you spotted any new country artists coming out that you're excited by?
I've always admired Brothers Osbourne. I know they're not new, but I like the way that they're kind of doing their own thing. And you know, and they have their own sound. There's a younger artist that seems to be kind of all over the internet right now, goes by the name of Zach Top. And I can appreciate his authenticity when it comes to real country music. And he's actually a really talented guitar player, and he's got a great country voice too, which I can admire. I think those are the two at the top of my head that I could think of that you know, that I've, you know, kept an eye on, and that I can appreciate out of the new artists. And I'm sure there's a lot more out there. So maybe I gotta do a little bit more of my own homework and go look up these new great artists, or artists that aren't in that mainstream, that, you know, that are shoved down your throat consistently.
Yeah, exactly. So if somebody had never heard your music at all, is there one song that you would want them to start with?
I would probably have to say Outlaws and Outsiders, just because obviously, you know, that's the big one for me. But I kind of, in my opinion, kind of initiated this whole country rock thing that's starting to, seems like what's starting to happen. And obviously the features on it is a, you know, I'm not sure if that's a saying, but like a multi-generational genre of music, with Travis Tritt, who really kind of is one of the, you know, starters of this country rock, or southern rock country, you know, and pioneers of that. But then you have Mick Mars of Motley Crue. Don't need to really say much more than that. And then you have, you know, Ivan Moody of Five Finger Death Punch, who is really, again, all these artists, you know, in their time, especially, whether it's now or, you know, in the 80s or whatever, the 90s, you know, they kind of shaped their own thing. They broke the mold, did their own thing, and did it their own way. And it's something I've always appreciated and admired. And that's really what Outlaws and Outsiders is all about. So I would say that's the song that would kind of kick things off for me if someone never heard my music.
Nice. Well, I wish you all the best with what's coming up. I hope it's a different kind of year in the best way.
Yes.
And thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Appreciate it, Steve. Thank you very, very much. And hopefully we'll talk to you again soon. Maybe after the album comes out.
Throw your hands up if you feel the same.